Welcome back to the second episode in our podcast series called Voice of the Youth.
This series has been put together by a group of 5 diverse young people across Buckinghamshire. We started this podcast as a project for Takeover Day, which is a national initiative encouraging young people to get involved in making decisions that directly affect them.
Youth Takeover Day is our opportunity to get our voices heard with the hope of making a difference.
Over this series, we will discuss a wide range of topics that affect us and everyone around us.
Some of the things we will discuss include healthcare, politics, education and other subjects which are important to us as young people.
Today we'll be discussing PSHE and how it affects young people's lives. PSHE stands for Personal, Social and Health Education and has been part of the national curriculum for schools in the UK since 2000.
PSHE lessons, certainly when I was at school, we had all the serious lessons like your maths, English, and when you're doing GCSEs, they're all quite serious. And that PSHE lesson was the one opportunity a fortnight just to have fun. Yeah. And it was your lesson just to cool off. It wasn't you didn't have to take it seriously, and you didn't have to think in the way that this really matters because I'm getting a GCSE out of this at the end. That grade isn't going to be on a report.
Do we even do a GCSE in it?
No, that's the point.
That's the point. That's why everyone is doesn't take it as seriously, because it doesn't matter as much. It's the one lesson, when you're in year 7 and 8.
And PE.
It's the one free period. It's
Yeah.
a free period.
Apart from PE, but PE, you're still concentrating on running around in your team games and whatever. But it's the one time you actually get with your friends or your form or whoever to actually sit down and just have a chat.
Yeah.
And that was most of it for us. People couldn't, the teachers couldn't control us as much as they could in other lessons because the focus just isn't there. Because it's what does it matter?
Yeah.
I'm not getting a GCSE out of it.
So the way things are now then, with the experiences that you guys have had anyway, is PSHE relevant?
Not at all. It's worthless.
It should be though.
That was going to be my next question, is should it be relevant and how could it be made relevant?
Of course it should be relevant because it's about life skills.
Yeah, I think as opposed to just sitting there and reading facts, have a sheet of facts in front of you which, to inform you that you can take away from it, and then have a class debate about it. Or class discussion about it.
I do think there is ways and means. What we're saying about the fact that it is your one lesson just to basically chill and take a step back from focusing in the actual lessons. You still can make that educational. You've just got to be engaging enough, because sitting and giving someone a lecture, they're just going to switch off and start chatting, and that's what we did. But if we had been, say, going to friendship groups and discuss this, not everyone would do it, but you'd get far more people engaged, at least for a certain part of the lesson, to actually listen and engage with it and do it.
And I think it should be, seeing as these skills you're being taught are more important than, say, Pythagoras' theorem or some other thing you're learning, which...
Some of the things you learn at school, you're never going to use again afterwards.
The most intelligent people are in our class probably don't have much common sense at all, really.
2 members of our podcast team went to speak to Dave Liddington to get his views on PSHE.
We were saying, we were wondering what you thought about citizenship lessons, whether you think they're actually beneficial to students or whether you don't, because our conclusion was that they weren't.
My view is that there is a place for, whether you call it citizenship, PSHE or whatever, in school. It does depend hugely upon what the head and the teachers in charge of that area of the curriculum want to put into it. And I think you're right in saying that the standards can vary a great deal.
We also got to catch up with Mark Appleyard, Cabinet Member for Education and Skills for Buckinghamshire, and we asked him what is the point in PSHE.
I think PSHE in a way is the transfer from being a school at school to being in the world of work and an adult. Most of our schools spend a large amount of their time on the academic side, teaching you about maths and English and all the rest of the subjects. For a largish number of people, 50, 60 or so % of the students in the county, that's perfectly right and proper. But when you're getting to 16 and going through that period, people are wanting to know quite a lot about a number of subjects which don't appear on the curriculum at all. And I mean, it's about becoming an adult. It's about what changes. How do you conduct yourself? It's about learning how to get a job. It's learning about families and how you behave, and they talk about drugs and all the rest of the stuff, sex education and so on and so forth. A lot of those are things that people do want to know about, but the one area that is, or the areas that are not generally well dealt with, are going into adulthood and preparing for work and that side of things. Now, that's something that we're working on at the moment. We believe that, and it's as a result of the Youth Parliament, in fact, they made a presentation to me and others about a year ago, complaining that they were not getting this type of education, and I talk of it as being educating the whole person rather than the academic person. Now, it's a real big hole. It's something that's got to be done far more effectively by schools. What I have done is arranged for half a dozen very senior people in the county who are in very big jobs, like Ruth Farwell, for instance, who is the big cheese at the Buxton University, the chief executive of Pinewood Studios, and one or two others. Really big people to help a small group of Youth Parliament students to make a presentation to all the heads in the county. So we have given them the opportunity to talk to all the heads in the county. That is pretty unheard of. The reason I wanted that to happen was because I know that any self-respecting head will listen to their students. They won't necessarily do exactly what they're asked, but they will certainly listen. And I think that what makes it even more important is they've got a bunch of really senior industrial people running big companies right behind them saying, yeah, and we want this from you too. Now, that's only just happened, but I'm hoping to hear from head teachers about what they're doing to try and change the curriculum so that sort of thing is dealt with. I personally wouldn't call it PSHE. I'd think of some other title, because I think PSHE doesn't quite tell you what it is that are really the important bits. But believe me, it is going to be a very important part of your education, or you'll have gone by then. Yeah. But things are happening in your life which have been fought long and hard for by children very much, who've left. So you're very much fighting for the people who are going to follow you. But it's an absolutely crucial thing.
We're going to talk to Tom and Ethel. They're former members of UK Youth Parliament.
One of their greatest achievements is their successful campaign called Curriculum for Life. So Tom, what is the Curriculum for Life?
The Curriculum for Life is the UK Youth Parliament's, was the UK Youth Parliament's national campaign, and it was looking very much at trying to make sure that schools' curriculums and what young people are taught is really providing them with life skills and is relevant to them. And we felt that PSHE was an area where we could make sort of significant difference with that, because we felt there were some things from our own PSHE experiences which were very relevant and really useful and really helpful, and we wanted to see more of. and then there were bits from our experience that were actually thought, you know what, we probably could have done without that particular lesson, or that time there could have been spent better on this, or we don't think that lesson was very well delivered. So we decided to campaign and work very much on that.
So Ethel, as part of Youth Cabinet, what influenced your decision to make an improvement on PSHE?
So in office as a member of Youth Parliament, you do get to consult with a lot of young people through youth councils, school councils, pressure groups and all kinds of different young people from across Buckinghamshire. So just asking them to voice what they'd like us to change. A lot of people did mention PSHE and how it was a waste of time really, and we thought, considering the government are spending so much money on education and pumping millions of pounds into this sector of education, surely we should do something to change it.
And how did you conduct your research?
Initially we set up a Facebook group, and it was an open public group for anybody, any young person across Bucks, aged 11 to 18, to add their views on PSHE, what they'd like to change, what they'd like to see in the future. And then we did an online survey. We also had interviews with teachers. We decided to keep them anonymous for several reasons.
Sure.
And focus groups.
Were you surprised by the teachers' feedback?
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised. I thought a lot of teachers would be not necessarily defensive, but I thought teachers would say, no, we provide a high quality of PSHE at our school, and we work very hard on it, and how dare you come and speak to us and say that we're doing a bad job and all of that stuff. But no, there was none of that at all, really. What a lot of teachers did is that they voiced sort of quite genuine concerns, and that they sort of believed that if they had literally more time, or they brought in charities or outside speakers, they would really be able to sort of improve the PSHE delivery to their students. And that was quite interesting to hear. And it was what I think was particularly good as well is that when you're presenting this kind of information to adults, they respond, I think, slightly better if you can say other adults, other teachers, people who are doing this every single day are coming out with these ideas. This isn't just a bunch of young people who are getting a bit annoyed. This is teachers who believe there's, again, scope as well for improvement. So yeah, it was surprising, but positive in a way for our campaign and what we were trying to achieve.
Were there any worrying issues that concerned young people that needed to be addressed?
I think one of the really striking statistics that came up from our research was 1 in 10 young people believed it was okay to engage in sexual activity even though they didn't feel like it. And I thought that was quite concerning, especially with the child sexual exploitation being quite topical within government, Scotland, and with the grooming as well that's going on across the country.
So do you think that in PSHE lessons young people feel confident in bringing up issues like this?
I don't think it is, because of the pressures and the environment that school is conducive to. So I think it would be better if maybe schools were a bit more creative, let's say with anonymous questionnaires or having student mentors in certain areas of PSHE. I think it would really help and encourage student participation.
What benefits should PHSE give for future employment?
I think the point of PSHE partially is to try to hone the skills that young people already have. So, for example, a young person may have very, very good GCSE results or have done very well in exams or coursework or things like that. But it's their ability to sit in front of an interview panel, for example. Everyone is very nervous when no one walks through an interview really easily and very, very happily. It's about again trying to arm young people and say, okay, those 3 people who are interviewing you are just other human beings, and you need to these are the ways you can relax and you can get into it and you can perform well. So I think PSHE in certain areas when it comes to preparing people for their working lives, it's about trying to polish certain bits of what they've already got. They've got the raw ingredients, but it's making sure that good young people with good results get the absolute best job that they can do and perform as well as they can do. I think at the same time it's about trying to sort of help young people who, if you come up with some kind of issue which may affect your ability to work well, to perform well in exams or to do well, with a future employer, you know how to deal with those kind of issues, or you're well equipped enough to know where you can go and get support to deal with those issues. We don't want a situation where anybody is faced with an issue and they feel there's no help out there whatsoever for them at all, because that's not good for schools, that's not good for employers, that's not good for the people themselves. So I think that's sort of the role that PSHE tries to fulfil.
What is your hope for the future of PHSE in Buckinghamshire?
Well, personally, I really hope that the secondary school heads and their representatives that were present today, don't take the views and the evidence we've presented to them as our own views, but recognise that we're representing young people from across Buckinghamshire and realise the sheer size of the issue we have here of not dealing with PSHE. And I think the greatest defeat would be if school, the head teachers did go back, but not much was improved, and not many students felt anything changed after our 2 years of research, consulting them and hearing what it is they wanted to hear.
Thanks for listening to the second part of our podcast series.
Be sure to check out our SoundCloud because we will be back soon, tackling even more topics that are important to us as young people, such as education, healthcare, and even world issues. We'd like to thank all of the young people involved, Joe from Bucks Youth Service and Sunil from Sound Studio for making this series possible. For more episodes, check us out on soundcloud.com/Voice of Youth Podcast. If you want to get your voice heard, just #VoiceOfYouth.